Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our live, interactive telephone town hall with Pennsylvania Labor and Industry Secretary Jerry Oleksiak and UC Benefits Policy Director Susan Dickinson. My name is Dirk, and I'll be today's moderator. The goal of this event is to provide you with helpful information and to answer your questions, as well as update you on Pennsylvania's unemployment benefits programs during the COVID-19 pandemic. As I mentioned, this is an interactive forum, and we would love to hear from you. We'll be taking as many questions from participants as we possibly can live during this event. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They'll take down your name and where you're calling from, and if you're a reporter, the media outlet you represent. The next time you hear your name, you'll be live on the call and able to ask your question directly. If you're streaming the event on our website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can this afternoon. Again, to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. We'll receive a lot of questions during these live events, so if you're not able to get to your question today, please send us an email at uchelp@pa.gov. Let's begin with opening remarks from Secretary Oleksiak. We'll start with you, sir.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you to everyone who has joined us this afternoon, whether it's by phone or the live stream. We appreciate your involvement in this. Just a quick numbers update. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the mitigation efforts, we have distributed over $14 billion in benefits through the unemployment compensation system. That includes our regular system and through the CARES Act, the federal dollars that we are also responsible for. Just to let you know, as you're aware, many of the counties around the state are moving through the phases, the yellow phase and many into the green phase. Know that if you applied for benefits either through our traditional unemployment compensation system or the PUA program, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Programs, and get called back to work, you're still eligible for benefits that you would have received for the weeks that you were unemployed due to COVID-19. And Susan will have more information and instructions on that when she speaks before we take your questions. Also, there are other benefits that are available through other state agencies. If you're laid off from your job due to COVID and have not returned and are no longer receiving health insurance through your previous employer, you should visit www.insurance.pa.gov. That's the Pennsylvania Insurance Department at www.insurance.pa.gov to learn more about continuing your health insurance through COBRA, through whether it's also information on receiving medical assistance through Compass and other options for health insurance. Also, if you visit www.pa.gov, that's www.pa.gov, you can find other information on other financial help available, mortgage and rent information, mental health resources, food assistance, and even driver service updates. So there are other resources available through the state government. Two quick issues that I'll provide updates on related to PUA. As many of you know, there has been an ongoing investigation into potential fraud that is continuing in Pennsylvania with other state agencies and with federal investigatory agencies as well. Those of you who are receiving benefits know that we switched your payments to paper checks as soon as our anti-fraud division discovered the potential fraud attempts over the Memorial Day weekend. We're now in the process of switching those payments from paper checks to the U.S. Bank Relia cards. And again, Susan will provide more information on that as well as what it means for those of you who are currently receiving benefits through direct deposits. And still related to this, we want to ensure everyone that no L&I system or data were compromised in these fraud attempts. This is a national scam that's going on that did impact Pennsylvania, but it was not through labor and industry systems. The other PUA situation to be aware of is the backdating. As you know, PUO is a brand new federal program that was created under the CARES Act for individuals who are self-employed, independent contractors, gig workers, others not traditionally eligible. We know that many of you have been experiencing issues with backdating your claims, and we hear that. We are as frustrated as you are with it. We have been working diligently with the vendor who built the system to fix those backdating issues, and we hope we're close to that now. Susan will provide an update, and then we will be taking questions. Susan?
Thank you. So, hello, everybody. First, I will mention a couple of things about regular claims and PEUC, the 13-week extension claim. For regular claims, I just want to remind everyone that we are still, working through a lot of claims issues. So if you had an issue when you first filed your claim, you may have answered a question that raised an issue that we need to address, one that we need to look into further. We have more help now with our UC claims. We're able to shift staff around so that more people can tackle issues now, and we have other individuals answering the phone. So we are going to be going through those a little more quickly now, which is great. It is great to see all the extra help we've received, and we always have, more people coming on board, and we're always training new people to give us a hand. So we are making good progress there. If you did, however, receive a determination from us, whether it be a financial determination or related to a reason that's not a monetary reason, but some other reason, if your appeal date has passed and you are interested in appealing, please make sure that you do appeal. Just because the appeal date that's written on there, that's printed on there, has passed does not necessarily mean your appeal will be considered late because of the pandemic, because of the nature of the entire issue. We have plenty of mail that did not get out on time and may have gotten out late. So, you won't be penalized for something that's not your fault, clearly. So if you are interested in appealing any determination you received, you should still do that. And then, of course, the referee that it goes to will, hear the case. If it is a monetary appeal and you have some sort of a monetary issue, maybe your wages were missing and you have to provide pay stubs or something along those lines, many times that doesn't even have to go to a referee. That will just come to our staff and we will get the information from you and we'll be able to resolve it. So I wanted to make mention of those appeal dates. We have been, for the past several weeks, advertising it and making sure that the word gets out that if you have a past appeal date, you can still appeal. So let's talk about PEUC. PEUC is the 13-week extension that comes after UC. It started with the week ending April 4th. That was the earliest possible week that someone could receive PEUC. And so we're coming to a close soon for PEUC. Now, because of the high unemployment rate, Pennsylvania has triggered into an extended benefit period, which means that there is another extension that comes after PEUC. And it is up to another 13 weeks, but it could be less for you depending on how long your initial regular unemployment claim was. So it's proportionate to that. So if you had a 26-week unemployment claim, you'll end up with a 13-week EB claim if you get that far and you're still unemployed. And so there will be more information that the department will be issuing about that in the coming weeks. And the first payable week of that program will be the week ending July 4th. So moving on to the PUA program and some of the things that the Secretary has always mentioned, and I'll go into a little bit more detail. For any of you on the PUA program, you received an email from us on Monday evening explaining that we are moving to debit cards. As you are aware, we've been sending checks for the past 2 weeks or so prior to that because of all of the fraud happening with the PUA program nationwide, not just in Pennsylvania. So the paper checks actually were very helpful in making sure that, it's pointed out to us which claims may be fraudulent. So we're not fully ready to move back to direct deposit yet, but at least we can issue debit cards. Those still go in the mail to you, so that's still a safeguard to make sure that it's physically getting where it should be going. And then that will enable you, once you receive that initial debit card, rather than having to receive checks every week, once you receive your initial debit card, at that point forward, your payments will then just go straight to the card. So it'll be a lot faster for you, and you'll be able to get your payments a lot faster. And the debit cards, we do have a lot of information on our website about them. And they also come with information, and they're through Bank of America. And I know that there's ways to easily, you don't necessarily have to, go to a machine and get cash out to use them. There's ways to hook up, that account to your own bank account and just move money over. So, if you read the materials that go with it and look around on the website for those instructions, that'll be, fairly simple to manage as we work with our vendor and try to put in more safeguards so that someday, hopefully, we do move back to direct deposit for everybody who requests it. We also mentioned backdating. This has been the issue even on these town halls. Every week, someone will ask about backdating. When can they receive weeks or be able to file for weeks in the past? They may have been able to file for 1 week in March and they didn't get paid for it, and then the whole claim was shut down, and now they can't get weeks since then. Even if they're getting current weeks, they can't move backwards. So that's been an issue for since the beginning of when we launched this system. And so we are extremely close to being able to open up those weeks for everyone. It was an issue that's very integral to the construction of the program. So it wasn't an easy fix that the vendor could do. It took a lot of architecting. So we're finally pretty much there. My advice would be to keep watching your email, because we will be emailing everyone when the time comes to say, log in now and go file for your back week. So keep monitoring your email and look for that from us, and we'll be able to give you the good news when it comes in, and you'll be able to go in and file for your weeks. I also did want to mention the two-factor authentication. That's something that just started yesterday, and so far it still has kinks in it. So we've turned it off for anyone who has tried logging into your account. What this is it would text or email a code to you, and then to log into your account, you would log in normally, but then there was also a box there where you had to put in the code just to make sure that, your contact method that you gave us, whether it be a cell phone that you entered or an email, is authentic and it is you. So anyway, that's what two-factor authentication is. And it was having issues, so our vendor has turned it off for now. And so we'll still be, working and testing with them and eventually be turning it back on again. But for any individuals who were frustrated this morning that you weren't able to get in, you can get in now because it's off. So you can go log into your account normally right now, and it will work. I did want to mention also the SPUC program. That's the $600 a week on top of your regular benefit. Just a reminder that the SPUC program is coming to an end with the week ending July 25th. So we're still about a month and a half away. But, we are starting to remind everyone that this will be ending soon. So just a few more weeks to go. And one more thing, and that is returning to work, especially now that the counties are reopening. They're moving to the yellow, everyone's in the yellow phase. Many are moving to the green phase. As counties reopen and people go to work, for starters, there's no need to contact us to say you're going to work. You simply just stop filing for your weekly claims or biweekly claims, depending on which program you're on. So you don't need to, cancel your claim or contact us, and you just stop filing for benefits if you go back to work full-time. If you're only going back part-time, you can continue filing for benefits, and you would just enter the amount of your earnings for those weeks. And you may or may not qualify. It depends on how much your earnings are compared to what your combination rate is. If you all look back to your original financial determination, There's multiple figures on there and acronyms. And the WBA is your weekly benefit amount. The PBC is your partial benefit credit. And when you add those two together, it creates the combination rate. So if someone's working part-time reporting wages to us, what we do is we use the combination rate and we'll subtract the amount that you provided as your earnings, and then you receive the difference. So there may be weeks in which you earn too much. Even if you're not working full-time, it is all based on the monetary calculation. So if you earn too much, you won't get a check for that week. But if it's variable, in some weeks you earn too much and some weeks you don't, you might still qualify for partial benefits. So everyone's situation will be different. And if you do return to work, even full-time, but we still owe you benefits from the past 3 months sometimes, you are still entitled to those benefits. As we resolve any issues that may have been on your claim and we, sort everything out, you will still receive payments for those weeks. So just because you're back to work full-time at this point in time, it doesn't preclude you from benefits in the past when you were unemployed. So we will be getting through those and issuing those benefits to individuals. So with that, I think it is time to start taking questions.
Sounds like a great idea. We've got a number of people that are in line to ask questions, and the first person in line, Susan, is Jessica. Jessica, go ahead. You're live on the call. What is your question?
Hi. I have a question about the PUA and how you're calculating the weekly benefit amount based off of our base year and just the actual calculation to get to that number.
Sure. So the calculation for the PUA claims follows what regular unemployment uses as well. The only difference being with a PUA claim, there is a minimum of $195 a week. For regular UC, it's much lower than that. So anyway, to come up with someone's weekly benefit amount, there is a wage table in our law. We actually also have it available on our website. If you go to www.uc.pa.gov, you can search for probably something like monetary calculation or benefit calculation, something like that. And there's a page that comes up with a whole bunch of links for wage tables. So what the wage table does is it has it in our law, it's broken down into segments. If you made, from between here and there in one quarter, then in your highest quarter, then your weekly benefit amount might be a certain number. So there's multiple wage rules when qualifying for regular UC. And in general, the weekly benefit amount, as long as you meet all the other rules, then the weekly benefit amount number is set based on your highest quarter. So there's always four quarters in your base year. So whichever one you made the most money, we use that one, compare it to that wage table in our law, and then set the weekly benefit amount to that number. And it's pretty much dictated in the law what it's going to be. It's not something that we have discretion over. And then of course your weekly benefit amount, once that's set, your partial benefit credit, which I just mentioned a moment ago, is 30% of your weekly benefit amount. And then you add the two together and you get your combination rate. So both PUA and regular UC are both calculated the same way using that rate table in our law.
Our next question comes from Josh. Josh, you're live. What would you like to know, sir?
Yes, I just have a question, and thank you for taking my call. This morning I received a phone call from you guys stating the reason why I departed from my employer. The guy was saying that my employer was supposed to fill out a questionnaire, but they were late on their questionnaire. But I'm going to receive a letter. Now, are they allowed to appeal since they were late on their questionnaire?
Hi, Josh. Yes, they can. Both parties can appeal, for any reason. So once you both receive a determination, It's the aggrieved party, the one that didn't win, that is the one that will be able to file an appeal to the decision. And then when you get to that level of referee hearing, it's almost like a clean slate at that point. You both attend the referee hearing and have to build your case from the ground up. So they may have some materials, from the department which you previously submitted, and there may even, depending on the case, not usually in a separation case, but in a lot of cases there may even be a department representative there to explain those materials to the referee. However, for the most part, it will be you and the employer, and you both get to make your case at that point. And the referee will hear the merits of the case. They're completely independent, so it is really like a clean slate at that point where you get to make your case.
Thank you for that answer. Next, we're going to an online question. And Amanda writes in, I work at a college and had my hours reduced. Many of my colleagues and I haven't received the UC benefits or the additional $600. How can we get our benefits?
That's a great question, Amanda. The education piece is what's holding up your claim. So there is a question on the initial application that says, have you worked for a school or university, et cetera? And so the reason it gets held up is because there's a piece of the unemployment law which has us look to see if you have what's called reasonable assurance, and that is, a kind of a promise, I guess you could say, from your employer that you will be going back to work after a school break. So whether it be the summer or maybe it's Christmas break or something like that. So individuals with reasonable assurance, so they're promised their job when they get back, are not eligible for unemployment. What it does is it prevents, teachers who, for example, work year-round, but they get paid year-round, but they don't really work in the summer. Even though they're not working, they're not eligible for unemployment because it's part of their regular job to be not working in the summer. So that's where that piece of the law comes from. So in your case, especially because when a lot of the schools shut down for COVID-19 and, there was some online learning, but there may have been less activity happening and some teachers did get laid off, you probably wouldn't be denied for those weeks. I mean, that would be a legitimate reason to be unemployed. So you will end up being eligible for those if you're otherwise eligible. But unfortunately, the system still stops the claim because you said you worked for a school, and so now we have to look into the reasonable assurance issue. So it will probably be easily resolved once someone gets there. You'll probably receive a questionnaire in the mail, or sometimes someone may call you, and just ask you some questions to see if you might have reasonable assurance. So it'll be resolved after that point. It is just a little bit of a wait, and I realize a couple months of a wait at this point for some individuals because so many schools were affected, and we have a lot of educators who are then, and other people who work at the schools who have filed for unemployment. So we are moving through the list, as quickly as we can. Just keep your eyes peeled for something in the mail from us or, a phone call from us.
Back to a live question. We've got Diane up next. Diane, what is your question? Hello, Diane, are you there?
I am, sorry. I have 2 part-time jobs, and when this all happened, one of my part-time jobs laid me off for the time being, and I worked the other one, but my hours were reduced. So when I initially filed my claim, because I had taken a leave of absence from the job that laid me off altogether, it said I was ineligible for unemployment because I didn't have enough credit weeks. So I'm wondering, how do I apply such that it's showing I worked 2 jobs so that I receive the unemployment for that?
Okay, Ann. So it sounds like actually the root of the matter is the credit weeks. So we have, Pennsylvania has a wage record where every quarter, so every 3 months, employers are required to report people's wages to us, and then we maintain that wage record. And when anyone files an unemployment claim, All of the monetary calculations I was just speaking about 10 minutes ago are all done using what's in the wage record. So as long as both of those employers, actually let me back up. If one of those employers but the other one wasn't reporting wages properly, then you may have an issue where you would have to appeal and you would have to show that you did have enough credit weeks. A credit week is a week in which you earn $116 or more. And by Pennsylvania UC law, a person has to have at least 18 credit weeks in their base year. The maximum that kind of sets how many weeks of unemployment you can get. So if you have 18 credits in your base year, you'll get 18 weeks of unemployment. If you have 19, you'll get 19, and so on until 26. 26 is the maximum. So back to the two part-time jobs. So if you didn't get from either of those employers, say someone wasn't including their information, then you can appeal and have that information included. Perhaps between the two employers, you do have some $116 weeks in there. So that's one route. Now, if you do look through your wage history and your pay stubs and you kind of figure out that you don't have enough credit weeks to qualify, then if you're still unemployed due to COVID-19 related reasons, you could file for a PUA claim because you don't have to meet the credit week standard for a PUA claim, and that's the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Claim. So what you should do is, review the information that you have for your own wages during the base year. And, I'm not sure, depending on when you filed your claim, if you filed it in April, May, or June, your base year will be January 2019 to December 2019. If you filed in March, shift everything back 3 months. So if you filed in March, your base year would be October 2018 through September 2019. And just see if you have enough credit weeks to qualify. If you do, you can send that proof into the UC Service Center. On your financial determination, there are instructions there on how to appeal and where to send that. So you can send that in and possibly be eligible. But if you're truly not eligible, then your other option is the PUA claim.
Our next question comes from Bill. We've got Bill on the line. Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. I'm a bridge building carpenter, and typically we're laid off 6 to 8 weeks because it's seasonal, the weather and everything, 6 to 8 weeks each year between January and March. Because of the COVID this year, I'm not going back to work until Monday, where typically I would have been back in sometime in March most of the time. And I'm concerned that come this coming January that I won't be eligible to collect unemployment for that time. I've been doing this for like 22 years, and there's never been a situation like this. So I was wondering if any provisions have been made for next year because of what happened this year.
And that is a great question. So it is possible if everything stays the way it is now, and you end up with not enough wages for a claim in January, it is possible that you could not qualify. Now, in order to qualify for unemployment, a person needs at least 2 quarters of wages. So right now it's June. You're still in a good spot, possibly. You don't need a full 3 or 4 quarters of wages. You need 2, and it needs to meet a certain minimum threshold. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember what it is. It's something like $2,600. It's fairly low, maybe $3,000. So, at that time that you would be filing and opening a new claim, that would be the wage test that we do, is our regular wage test to see if you qualify. Now, right now, the CARES Act programs, all of the federal programs that are, extending unemployment and providing different programs for unemployment, those are all set to end this year. There's nothing that extends into next year. So that would take, as we say, an act of Congress, but really it would take an act of Congress to, extend any of those programs. The FPUC is the additional $600. The PUA is the catch-all program if people don't otherwise qualify for unemployment, and the PEUC is the 13-week extension. In my opening remarks, I'd also mentioned extended benefits. That's at the state level. That's not a temporary legislated program like the CARES Act programs are at the federal level. It's in our law all the time, but the unemployment rate has to be high enough for it to trigger on. So right now we have that one. So it would depend on what our unemployment rate is, and if it dips low enough, then that program would trigger off. So that's the status of the programs now. When you get to January, if that's typically when you file your claim, you just have to look back at your base year and see what your wages look like and if you have enough to qualify.
We're moving on now to another online question. Hunt asks, will essential workers who are laid off in July get any extra UC funds? And how long will extra UC be available?
So by extra, that could mean a couple different things. So if you're asking about the additional $600 on top of regular benefits, that will be available in July, but only to the end of July. So it's just going to be available through July 25th. If the question, though, is if there's extra weeks added on to regular unemployment claims, the answer is yes. The PEUC program will pay an additional 13 weeks on the end of regular UC, and that goes through December 26th. And then, of course, at the state level, we have the extended benefits program that is currently active, and there's really no way to predict when exactly it's going to be inactive, but for now, it will provide an additional 13 weeks onto the end of PEUC, just as long as the program is still active.
All righty, back to a live question. We've got Joseph on the line with us. Go ahead, sir. You're live on the call. What is your question?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. My question relates to what was briefly discussed about the PUA back weeks. I recently had received my eligibility letter the beginning of June for PUA, and not knowing that an email was going to be sent out about filing for back weeks, I had gone onto the system to try and file, for my weeks, and it did accept it, but that was on June 4th, and I guess my question is, since I had originally signed up for direct deposit, would I be receiving a paper check, or do I wait for a debit card now?
Hi, Joseph. So June 4th, so if you're looking at your dashboard and it confirms that the payment was made, and usually there's a multiple digit code there that shows,
Yes.
Just a certain code. So it shows that your payment went through. Then you probably had that issued as a check, and that will be coming out soon. But we are converting everyone, because of the fraud measures we have to take, we are converting everyone over to debit cards soon. So you'll receive that in the mail probably next week, I would think. And then you'll be able to get your payments much faster. They'll go straight to the debit card. We hope to be able to have enough measures in place that we can go back to direct deposit real soon. We realize it's convenient for everyone. It's convenient for the fraudsters too, unfortunately. So that's their our challenge in trying to battle those. So anyway, yes, you should be receiving those checks anytime now. And then moving forward, anything that you file for and is paid will go to the debit card.
Jamie is on the line next. Jamie, what is your question?
Hi, my question is, I received 2 determination letters. One said I was ineligible under Section 401D1, and then the other letter said I was eligible under Section 402B. And I didn't know, it does say on here that a determination takes precedence, but it was under 2 separate sections. Do I have to file an appeal, or am I going to receive benefits under Section 402B?
Hi, Jamie. That's actually a very good question. So when the two sections there that you mentioned, the one section is the voluntary quit section, and it sounds like you're eligible under that, which is good. Over a voluntary quit or a discharge, some sort of a separation type issue, if you're not eligible, that kind of disqualifies you from the whole claim. And so in that regard, it's good. So you're eligible. We're good to go. But now the other section is the able and available section. So, for example, if someone were out of town for a week, they wouldn't have been able to accept work. They're not eligible for benefits that week. Or, someone who isn't able to work because they're too sick to work for a week. So that's the part where it sounds like you're ineligible. But that particular section of law is a week-to-week test. So it doesn't disqualify you from the whole claim. You're only disqualified for the weeks in which you're not able and available to accept work. So depending on what your issue is, like right now, the able and available interpretation of the law is very broad because of this pandemic that we're having. So, a lot of reasons before, for example, childcare, which may not have qualified someone. If you didn't have childcare, you may qualify if you're still able to accept some form of work at home. It's slightly different, but you still have to be able and available to accept work in general. It's an integral part of the national unemployment program. So the states aren't allowed to waive that. We must, make sure people are able and available. So what you would do is, if you disagree with that and you feel you are able and available, then yes, you would appeal and possibly have that decision reversed. However, if you do agree with it and you aren't able to accept a job for the week in question or able to do the work for a week in question, you can let it stand, but for any week in which you are able and available, you would contact the office and say, hey, I'm available now. There's no particular purge per se. Like if you're disqualified for another reason, let's say you quit your job and you weren't qualified, you would have to work and earn 6 times your weekly benefit amount before we could purge that determination. But when it comes to a week-to-week test, there's not any type of purge like that. You don't have to work 6 times your benefit amount. You simply have to, let us know when you are able and available. And the examiner may ask for, some sort of proof if it's feasible. But anyway, that in itself wouldn't completely disqualify you for benefits. It just depends on your week-to-week situation.
All right, looking here, we've got a number of online questions, so we'll take another one. This one's from Anne. She's tried to backdate her PUA claim on the PUA website, but it's been under review for over 3 weeks. How can she resolve this problem? Can I go to the Harrisburg office and file in person?
Hi, Anne. So the PUA, if you were able to actually put in the request to have the backdating done, that is being reviewed by staff. It just goes on a list, and then they go through them each day. They'll contact you if there are any questions, and then they'll be able to approve it. If there is an issue where you couldn't actually file for the back weeks, we had mentioned that a little bit earlier, then those weeks will be open for everybody very soon. Just keep watching your email, and then we will send out instructions when it's time for everybody to file. But I do want to mention the in-person question. We actually have not had in-person offices since the 1990s, pretty much, and especially during a pandemic, we would not want, contact. We would not want individuals to come in and expose themselves. So, in-person is usually not something that we offer. The closest we come, when career links are open, we do have the unemployment phone lines in the career links. And they're just a phone line that gets you right into the staff. But the career links have been closed as well. So your best bet, especially for PUA claims, is to call the phone line or send an email to ucpua@pa.gov. The phone line actually we have a lot more people being trained right now to be able to help with that phone line. There's various different waves of people that we have, and once they're done with their training, they'll be able to get on the phone line. So there'll be more help there very soon. However, if it is just a matter of being able to file for back weeks, you may just want to wait and wait for our email and then check and see if you can go in and file for your back weeks, and then you can claim them at that time.
All right, here's another online question for you. It comes from Bernard. He received the initial claim confirmation letter, but never received the benefit eligibility letter. And after filing the biweekly claims, he hasn't received any money. When can he expect his claim to be processed?
So it sounds like maybe the financial determination never came in the mail, if I'm understanding that correctly.
It does state here he received the initial claim confirmation letter.
Okay, so he has his PIN letter, so that's good. And he has been filing weeks, it sounds like. So the determining factor then is, well, actually lately we've been finding one of two things. Either it is an issue on his claim that we are looking into, depending on, how he answered the questions, if there's something further we need. Or a lot of times individuals we're finding may actually have their benefits waiting for them on the debit card that was sent to them. And this has nothing to do with the PUA fraud. This is just our regular UC process. Just about everyone will still receive a debit card even if you sign up for direct deposit. And that's because direct deposit through our Pennsylvania Treasury doesn't always set up immediately. So the debit card is sent to a lot of people so that your benefits are able to be accessed without having to wait. If there's some sort of a direct deposit issue, the account number is wrong or something's happening, your benefits will then be on the card and you can get to them right away. So it's one or the other. So if there is an issue on the claim, that's one that we're just having to work through. Or if you really feel like there were no issues, that your application was fine and there was nothing that you know of, you may want to just check if you received a debit card in the mail. You may want to check and see if the benefits are on there.
All right, going back to a live question now. We've got Bob on the line with us. Bob, go ahead with your question, sir.
Yes, hello. Thanks for setting this up. Very helpful. I have a rather unique situation. I work for two different entities, but I work on a part-time as-needed basis. In other words, there are no set days or hours per week or per month that I work. And I didn't think because I didn't have, let's say, 30 hours a week or 35 or whatever, that I would be eligible to even file for unemployment. But a friend said, well, I think you might be because of the pandemic. So my question is, can I file for pandemic unemployment benefits?
Hi, Bob. So it's possible. So it depends on how, and it's all a monetary calculation, actually, not so much related to specifically to the pandemic, but when we open, when someone opens a new claim, there's a monetary calculation that happens. We look at your base year to see how much wages are there, see what the quarterly breakdown is, see if you have, enough credit weeks, which is $116 earned in any week. So the system actually does all of that calculation on its own, and it will then issue the financial determination. So when you receive that information, it'll tell you, a whole bunch of financial information, how much you might be able to get each week. And what it will say is it'll give you a partial benefit credit and a combination rate. So what you can do is you start filing for your biweekly claims for payments. And when we ask, did you work, you would say yes. And it would ask for your gross earnings for the week. You would input your gross earnings. So if your earnings are excessive for the week, you wouldn't receive a benefit. But if it was a week where you didn't have a lot of work, it was a little lower, you might receive a benefit. So it's all based on the calculation. And it really depends on your work right now compared to the work that you were doing during your base year. So if you have always kind of had a lower number of hours, you may find that you don't end up qualifying for benefits very often. However, if last year you worked a lot more than you are now, it's likely that the math is going to work out that you'll end up getting a benefit, at least some partial benefit for a lot of your weeks. So, my recommendation would be to file for regular unemployment. It wouldn't necessarily be the pandemic unemployment or another program. Just open a regular unemployment claim. And that determination that comes in the mail, that'll give you all those financial calculations. You can see what they say, and then, as you go along, and especially when you have weeks where you didn't seem to have, as much work as you used to, just file for your benefits and put in your earnings amount and see what comes of it.
Next up, we've got Barbara. Barbara, go ahead. What's your question?
All right, my question, thank you, is I am a school bus driver, and I was on medical leave for the month of February and March. I was due to go back the 1st of April. Now, normally I have to place a new claim after my days of driving are over, which is around June the 8th. Now, I went back and I filed on May the 6th, and I got a confirmation letter by my email here. And it said that when I called in for my unemployment date, they told me I have to go and call a new number, the 7284 number. I cannot get through. Now, I'm eligible now again to file a new claim. So do I forget about the new claim and just stay with the reopened claim, which would be in force until June the 8th?
Hi, Barbara. So when it comes to unemployment claims, they're good for 1 year. So depending on when that first claim, when you first opened it, and it sounds like you usually open them in June, it might be expired by now, and then you would move on to the next one. However, if you had weeks of unemployment in April and May that you're looking to claim, you would definitely want to pursue those, and we would pay you the back weeks if you were unemployed. If your regular claim runs out of money, so there's two parts to unemployment benefits. There's to an unemployment benefit claim. There's the time frame, which, as I mentioned, is a year, but then there's the money, how much money is available. And typically, most people have 26 weeks of benefits available. It won't be any more than that. So if you've reopened your claim and you're looking to claim your weeks, your biweekly weeks, you would do that, and if you ran out of money, you would actually then qualify for a PEUC claim, which is a 13-week extension, up until the day when you can file your brand new claim. It sounds like, again, that's probably early June, sometime around now. So those are your options. You wouldn't be able to continue on the PEUC claim if you can qualify for a regular UC claim. The federal government tells the states in which order we must pay claims. So you don't get to choose and we don't get to choose. Like, we must make sure that you get regular unemployment benefits before any other program. And if you can then qualify for PEUC, we move you to PEUC. If at any time you re-qualify for regular unemployment, we have to move you back, regular unemployment, we then have to move you back to regular unemployment. It is complicated. I'll be the first to admit there's a lot of programs happening and a lot of interaction between them. So you would, make sure that you pursue your benefits for the past weeks on your reopened claim. And when we do reopen claims, that is one interesting thing about our system, is that brand new claims that don't have any issues go through without any manual intervention. Your paperwork gets sent out, you can start filing for weeks, and no human ever has to touch it. But when it comes to reopened claims, we have to touch every single one of those. So at the time you reopen your claim, it falls off to our staff to then open up weeks for you for filing so that you can proceed with your claim. And that has been, a little backlog because of all the high demand. It is a little better now than it was 2 months ago, but it may still be a little bit of time from the time a person reopens a claim until the time that you can file for your weeks. So my recommendation is just to go into the system to try to file biweekly claims. Just try once each day, because on one of the days, someone will make those available, and you want to make sure that you file for them before Friday hits, because that's the weekly deadline when all the weeks flip over to a different status. So just keep trying each day, and once your old claim is, the benefit year is up, then you can proceed on your new claim.
Next up, we've got Robert. Robert, you're live on the call. What is your question, sir?
Yes. I filed to reopen my claim, and I got denied because I didn't make enough money back at the beginning of May. So the referee told me to go ahead, and when I made the required amount of money, which was $1,806, to reopen my claim. And I did that on the 19th of May. But since then, I haven't got any paperwork from them, even denying me or anything. And when I get online, it's still saying that I don't even have a claim. My claim is active, but it's not open. And it still goes back to my original claim that I filed back in 2019. That was the first time I filed in 30 years. So I didn't understand all this business about the 1,806. I tried to file, I got denied. And when she told me that, I waited, I filed, but I haven't heard anything, even a denial. And I'm wondering, is it just a backlog, or is it something that they did when they declared me ineligible, that they declared me ineligible completely? Because it won't even let me file for anything.
Okay, so it sounds like the referee's office hasn't yet issued their decision, so you haven't...
Oh, I have the decision. It was issued.
Oh, okay.
And it says that I was ineligible under 4W2. And then it explains because I didn't make the required amount of money. And the referee said to me during the hearing, she said, well, if I disqualify you, you just have to wait a couple of weeks and you'll be able to file reopen.
Sure. Yeah, she could be talking about the purge. I had mentioned earlier there are certain disqualifications where you can purge the disqualification. There's some of them that are just a week-to-week test, and some of them that completely, you would be completely denied for your claim unless you did the purge. So that's probably what that is. So what happens when a referee decision goes out is the parties who are involved, they get a copy of it, and then the Unemployment Compensation Service Centers also get a copy of it so that they can review each one and see if there's any action that they need to take. So they probably, when they receive a denial like that, they make sure that the claim isn't making payments and that the denial is in place. So at this point, if you're going to, be looking to do a purge, you're going to work and earn 6 times your weekly benefit amount. Then what would happen is you would do that and then contact the service centers at that point and say, hey, I've purged my determination. You'll likely have to provide pay stubs or something to prove that you've purged your determination. And then you could be eligible at that point forward, as long as you were otherwise eligible. Because if you're working and earning 6 times the amount, clearly you're working. So if there's a new separation that makes you unemployed, we would just have to make sure that separation is a qualifying separation. So it sounds like that may be the issue there. Now, if and I can't remember, you had said, I think he's off the phone already, but the section of law he had mentioned, it might have been 4W, which may have been an invalid application. So he may just have to file in a few weeks based on his situation. So what I'll do is I'll encourage you to compare the decision that you received to our website. And there's a lot of information there about the different situations that people could be denied in and what you have to do about it. So then, you'll be able to, there's also a contact us page there where, you can send an email, just one email. And right now it is a little bit backed up. Of course, everyone realizes that we have a ton of emails sitting there. But especially if it's something that, you are going to possibly qualify in several weeks, you may as well just send it now. And then by the time we get to it, it will be several weeks from now, and we can give you further instructions.
All right, it's time for another online question. This one comes from Joseph. He wants to know if someone wants to attend trade school from 7 to 10 a.m., will that affect unemployment benefits?
So it's possible. So if it's just from 7 to 10 a.m., this comes back to the being able and available to accept work issue, which is a week-to-week test. So if you would, and here's the thought behind being able and available, if you were still able to accept full-time work, even in that situation, then you are able and available to accept work, and you would be eligible. If the school, however, whatever your program is that you're in, if that were to prevent you from being able to accept full-time work, then that is where the issue comes in, because unemployment is actually an insurance. It's an insurance program, for those who are working and connected to the workforce. So if you're removing yourself from the workforce, it's not a program you qualify for. If you're still in the workforce and still able to accept that work and accept a full-time job and still go to school, then you would be okay to collect unemployment benefits.
Thank you very much for that answer. And I think we're coming up to a stop time, but I'm going to try and sneak in one more question for you. We've got Jennifer on the line. Jennifer, go ahead with your question, please.
Hi, thank you. I successfully applied for unemployment in March and was receiving direct deposit. I was receiving the $600 and the biweekly UC benefits from Pennsylvania. And then right around Memorial Day, I stopped receiving the UC benefits. And you mentioned something about fraud and hard paper checks. So I'm wondering at what point is that possibly were those funds put on the debit card that was mailed to me that I did not activate because I was receiving direct deposit?
Jennifer, so it sounds like you're on a regular unemployment claim, so that shouldn't, the fraud measures that we're taking for our PUA program shouldn't affect you. That's just for our temporary federal program, PUA. So the first thing I would do if I were you is check the card. Just to make sure, just because there's so much going on. Right before the pandemic started, and this was back in February, we did have an issue with, it wasn't a lot of people, but there were some people that had that very thing happen. They were set up for direct deposit, and suddenly a few benefits randomly went to their debit card. I don't remember what what Treasury's situation was. I don't remember what caused it. It was a small scale type thing, and so we had it corrected, and we haven't had issues since. But that is the first thing that pops to mind. So make sure that you check there. And another thing could be if anything changed with your biweekly filing, or if your benefit year ended, if March wasn't the beginning of your claim, but it was prior and you were reopening your claim in March. So there's also a place to check online, check your claim status. It's not very robust. It doesn't give a lot of information, but it's worth a look just to see if your claim is active and make sure that everything looks in good working order.
And just as I thought, we are coming to the end of this live event. I want to thank you again for participating in today's L&I Town Hall. We appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with you and answer your questions. And now we'll go to closing comments from Secretary Oleksiak.
Thank you all for being with us. I hope you find these town halls useful and informative. I know we find them very useful. Thanks for participating, and we'll be doing it again next Thursday.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Susan. Now, for Pennsylvania labor and industry updates, please visit www.uc.gov And once again, if we were unable to address your question today, please send an email to uchelp@pa.gov. Again, that email address is uchelp@pa.gov. A hearty thank you to everyone for taking the time to participate in this call. We hope you stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful day.